It's Mo. It is the middle of April and I've suffered a small eye injury. My cat jumped on my head while I was sleeping and scratched around my eyeball. He did not scratch my eye, but it is swollen and I've had to take a few days off of work. This is very unfortunate because I also can't read during this time because it strains my other eye. So I have not been reading a lot. I've only been reading a little bit. I have started my TBR Tackle book for April, and that is Funny in Farsi by Fairuza Dumas. This is a memoir of Fairuza's time growing up in California in the 70s after she moved to America from Iran. So if you don't know what TBR Tackle is, it is a super fun TBR game created by Kieran at Katie Books. We picked 12 books starting in January, and each month Kieran has a guest book content creator come on and give us a prompt to choose from those 12 books. The first prompt had to do with locations and dates and what matched your book the closest. The second prompt had to do with number of pages. The third had to do with a random generator. And the fourth book was another page count style where we had to look at our favorite book of all time, and depending on how many pages it is, we had to pick based on that. It also depended on if your book was a super popular favorite book or not, and luckily my favorite book was not a super popular book, and I was able to stick with Funny in Farsi, which was the book that was chosen. And I have until the end of April to read this book. If you want to play TBR Tackle, it's not too late. Go to Kieran's channel and check out the videos, pick your stack of 12 books, or you can start with 7 books and just look at this month's prompt and pick from those 7 books. I always picked my next book at the end of each of these TBR Tackle vlogs, so you will see me pick my book for May at the end of this vlog. I'm only about 6/4, maybe even 1/3 of the way through this book. There is quite a bit of extra stuff at the end of this book, so it's really only this long. And it took me a little while to get into. The chapters are very short, and the way that it's told is very memory/story based. So each chapter is a little memory/story of something that happened to Fairuza's family since moving to America, and it's kind of wrapped up around the idea of the different cultural expectations, the cultural differences, the language differences, the feelings of Americans in the 70s towards Iran, and then after the Iran revolution or controversy that happened in the mid-70s to early 80s, and how Americans' views on Irani people changed. So the little chapters do contain bigger ideas in some ways, but they're told in a very patternistic way. So she tells the story, maybe it's about her dad, maybe it's about her mom, maybe it's about herself, maybe it's a memory, and then at the end, she kind of has a funny one-liner at the end of each chapter that refers back to something in that story. It definitely feels a little dated. It wasn't published that long ago. It was published in 2003, but it definitely feels a little gimmicky, a little silly, and not super in-depth at this moment. We are seeing her move from one area in California to a different area in California and how the people really changed. At the same time, we're kind of jumping through time to her time at Berkeley University in California and how she met her husband, and then the differences of not only her childhood, but her young adulthood, her adulthood, and today. I mean, I'm definitely interested in it, and there are quite a few things that I like. I'm super interested in Persian language and Farsi and just different languages of basically every country ever. So I hope that we get a little bit more of that, and I hope we get a little bit more Irani culture, because right now it's really more about American culture and less about like actual Irani culture. It is very quick to read, and if I did not have only one eye right now, I probably would have read much more of this in the 2 days that I've had off. I'm hoping to finish this one fairly quickly. Let me know if you've ever read any Irani authors. I've bookmarked a few books on my want to read list on Goodreads, which you can always find listed down below, because I would like to know more about this culture and I would like to read more authors from this place. When I read some more of Funny and Farsi, I will catch up with you. My husband got mad the other day because we were in the grocery store and we were buying seltzers, and the little grocery store checkout girl was like, "Oh, I know I'm old because I just started liking seltzer." And I was like, "That's funny because it's totally true. You don't like seltzer when you're young generally." And he was like, "I can't believe she called us old." I was like, it's fine. I have finished A Funny in Farsi by Firuza Dumas. It's mostly told through the perspective of small vignettes and telling whimsical stories about her life and her family, and specifically about her father. She does even say in the end that although this is her memoir, it really is all framed around her father, and her father is the star of this book. And that is true and very obvious when you're reading it. It's interesting because when they first moved to California, her mom had to go to school with her, and her mom didn't speak English either. So you would think that there would be more of a connection with her and her mother, but there's very clearly more of a connection with her and her father. I wonder how much that has to do with Iranian culture and how, patriarchy and family dynamic, and how much that just has to do with her as a person, who she identifies with and who she admires. I was definitely happy to read this. I was happy to learn a little bit about Iranian culture and that cultural clash and cultural divide of being Iranian but moving to America. Very, very interesting. I didn't love the way this book was written, and I didn't love that although Dumas went to college and although she was an intelligent person, she kind of fell into a very stereotypical gender role of being wife and mother. Not that there's anything wrong with wanting to be a wife and a mother, but there was a weird undertone of that this was the worthwhile thing that she did. So it was kind of like, well, she didn't have a career and she was a serial hobbyist and she was kind of funny and kind of smart, but she never amounted to anything, and then she wrote this book. So there was a very weird underpinning undertone of failure almost in this book, and then writing this book was a great achievement. I thought it was weird that she, especially because in her culture, the women tend to be wives and mothers, had a chip on her shoulder about that and didn't display her wife and motherhood in a way that was celebratory and important and
worthwhile. It turned out to be that, like, you know, this book was what she wrote that was worthwhile. And I think that it does show that she's a novice writer. I think that her writing style is funny, punchy, very much like silly, with like a tagline or a punchline at every chapter. That definitely got boring and old. And there were a few chapters within this book that didn't do that. And those were definitely the chapters that I liked more and that were more interesting. I also felt that the more that the chapter's subject matter was less about her family, her father, her brothers, and more about the cultural differences, the more I enjoyed them. Again, totally worth reading. I think this actually, and I've had a little spate of books like this, but I think this would be a great book to read to young adults or middle grade people. There's nothing very untoward in this. There's no bad language. There's no inappropriate topics. I mean, there's definitely some hard-hitting moments about racism and things like that, but not things that I think younger ears couldn't hear or shouldn't hear. So I think this would be an interesting look at how someone coming from a totally different culture to American culture and how they integrate themselves and how they are thought of in school. And I think there are some like maybe poignant teaching moments in this. Overall, as an adult book and as a memoir, it definitely wasn't taxing or making my brain work so much. So now I'm definitely interested in reading more Iranian work. I did read a short story right before I finished this, actually, called Parsnips in Love, and you can see my full thoughts on that in my April wrap-up. But it was interesting to me because that was written by a woman as well. I can't remember her name, but I'll put it here, and had a lot of the similar whimsy that this book had. So I wonder if that is an aspect of Iranian storytelling and writing and common vernacular and everyday interaction, exuberant kind of writing, living being, which obviously is not something that Americans would associate with Iran, because we do mostly know about the Iranian Revolution and about the war-torn strife about oil and things that are, yes, part of Iranian history, but not the full extent of Iranian history or Iranian culture. It is April 21st, so I have 9 days to wait to get my next TBR Tackle book. We can find out my next book together. The TBR Tackle book pile is definitely dwindling. I only have a few, it feels like. So I'm both excited and nervous. There is one book that I kind of want to get for May, and I might read even if I don't get it, but we will have to wait and see when we see Kieran's video. May 1st. I finished Funny and Farsi a few weeks ago now, but since it is May 1st, it is time to watch Kieran's video and pick out my next TBR Tackle book. Just a reminder, here are the books that I still have left on my TBR Tackle list. What Are You Going Through by Signa Nunes, There There by Tommy Orange, Buddha in the Attic by Julie Otsuka, Quicksand by Nella Larson, Long Division by Kiki Lemon, Transcendent Kingdom by Ya Ghazi, Blonde Roots by Bernadine Evaristo, and The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. Now, it is Horror Mayhem in May, so I am hoping to get this horror book on my TBR Tackle, but you really have to follow the prompts, and as we all know, who knows where the prompts are going to lead us. So let's watch Kieran's video. Oh my god, I'm so excited. Okay, so Simon's doing must read May, and so he said to take the book that you least want to read out of your stack and then swap in a book that you most want to read, but that book has to be set in Ireland. I don't think I have any books set in Ireland. I'm going to have to look and see if I have any books set in Ireland. Now,
he didn't say that that's the book that you have to read. And he did say that it's must-read May. So I think because it's must-read May, I can definitely must read The Only Good Indians. But I am going to pick a book that I at least want to read from my stack and swap it out. I'm going to check and see which books I might have that are set in Ireland. Well, let me watch the rest of the video, just in case there's any more twists and turns, because you just never know with a TBR Tackle video. He also said if your name begins with K, that you have to swap out all of your books and spell Savage. If your name begins with K, which very luckily none of my names begin with K, you would have to spell Savage. So you would pick your book and then spell Savage with the last 7 books. That's a tough one. A lot of Nora Roberts books are set in Ireland, apparently. Sally Rooney. Not seeing anything on there. I looked through so many books online just now, and I don't have any books set in Ireland, which is crazy. But okay, fine, whatever. I do have The Buck Passes Flynn, which has an Irish protagonist. And then Kieran said if you don't have an Irish set book, a Scottish set book would be the next one. And I do have The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. Neither of these books are written by people of color, and I've been trying to keep my TBR Tackle list to books written by people of color. I'm at a little bit of a loss, and I don't know what to do about that. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap out a book, because at this point I can't really complete the challenge in the way that it's intended, and you know how it is, you can just do whatever you want, basically. Out of the 8 books that I have, I'm least interested in are probably Blonde Roots by Bernadine Evaristo. I'm interested in all these books, but Blonde Roots is a YA, I believe. Although I really want to read more Nella Larson and Quicksand, this one hasn't been like screaming out to me to want to read. I'm gonna swap out Blonde Roots. If you see a book that is Irish, let me know. I think I'm going to swap in The Ghost Bride by Yang-C Chu, because I've been wanting to read some Yang-C Chu. I'm swapping out Blonde Roots and I'm swapping in The Ghost Bride, neither of which are set in Ireland. And then I'm cheating a little. They didn't say you had to read the Irish book. It said must read May. I am going to do my must read May book. This is my remaining stack of 7 TBR Tackle books. Thanks so much for joining me today while I read Funny in Farsi, and I will see you next month for The Only Good Indians. Let me know what you read in April. Let me know what you are reading in May for TBR Tackle, and if you haven't joined TBR Tackle yet, go ahead and pick 7 books and get ready for next month. See you in the next one. Thanks so much. Bye. Buddha and booty.